Yo, what is up, everybody? Chris here from Fake Sports News, back at it again with another video. Today I'm going to be bringing you guys a quick recap as to what happened during today's matches, that, of course, being day 2 or Friday of week 2 of stage 5 of the CDL. Now, today we kick things off with the Empire taking on the Mutineers. You guys know I was expecting the Empire to walk away with a 3-1, but honestly, the inverse happened and the Mutineers walked away with the 3-1. So I'm going to take this one map by map because it was a pretty close series. You guys know I was expecting every map in the series to be quite close, and honestly, they were, with the exception of course, map 2 and map 3. So I won't cover those, but map 1 and map 4 I definitely will. Of course, on map 1, you could see on the Empire side, it was a pretty even effort across the board. Vivid had a 0.96, Krim had a 0.88, Illy had a 0.83, and Shotzi had a 0.9. This, of course, being on Moscow Hardpoint, a map that's pretty spaced out, so the engagements are a little bit more sparse. So you're not necessarily going to see people dropping like 30 bombs and 40 bombs consistently, but it's pretty hard to have an even KD if you're not an AR player. So looking at, of course, Neptune on the Florida Mutineer side, he dropped a 1.83 and he was plus 15. So that's pretty impressive considering the fact that he is, of course, their main sub player, their main sub slayer. And also looking at everybody else on this team, right? Wake had a 0.82, Skies had a 0.92, and Havoc went even. So honestly, Neptune just carried this map, and that's the reason why they won by only an 8-point margin. It went down to the final hill, and Mutineers just chained, I believe, P4, no, maybe 3 and 4 together really well to close it out. But they clutched up, and they played really smart at the end behind a strong performance from Neptune. Of course, game 2, that being the standoff S&D, it was a pretty even performance across the board from the Empire side. And then Wake on the Mutineers dropped a 2.75, not showing it on the screen because it wasn't really that close of a map. And then on map 3, of course, it was the Vivid show. He had a 1.33. Shotzi backed him up with a 1.2. So the sub duo on Dallas, of course, came to play on raid control, and play they did. They played very well. And on the Florida Mutineers side, the only players that played well were Havoc and, of course, Skies. Neptune had a 0.63 here, and Wake had a 0.96. So that's the reason why the Empire were able to get it done. They had a pretty even effort across the board, and the Mutineers just had a little bit of inconsistency. Of course, looking at the map 4, Gary Hardpoint, I really thought the Empire were going to close this out. Going into, of course, the last hill, I didn't think Florida was going to make the comeback. It was P2 to P3, and Florida somehow chained those two, even though Empire had spawns. Just crazy performance. Looking at them KD-wise, of course, Skies had a 1.14. Neptune had a 1.38. Man was in his bag. No Birkin all series. Wake had a 1.29. Havoc had a 1.14. On the Empire side, Vivid had a 0.73. Krim was the only player positive with a 1.11. Illy had a 0.83. And Shotzi, of course, had a 0.63. One of the worst performances I've seen from Shotzi, so we'll call that an anomaly. Honestly, overall, I think that for the Empire, this kind of popped their bubble. The little honeymoon phase that they've had ever since picking up Reese Vivid. It was really rained on by their lackluster performances, but the majors where they brought it together, and then we get to stage 5, right? And the first 2 matches for the Empire go okay, right? 3-0s against weak teams, I believe. And then this match comes, and Mutineers, they smoked them, right? Like, they were close maps, but they just couldn't clutch where it mattered. And Mutineers walked away with the 3-1. I don't see this persisting, though, because look at the KDs here, right? Shotzi had a 0.83, Illy had a 0.81, Krim had a 0.84, and Vivid had a 0.99. So, honestly, I would have expected Shotzi to perform better, and Illy a little bit better, Krim a little bit better too. As long as those guys average about a 0.9 to a 0.95, they consistently win series. I think Florida just came out really hot today, and they were really looking to create some distance between themselves and London, and I believe Paris, maybe? So London and Gorillas, maybe. I think that's what they did because they locked in the 8th seed, and I believe they made it so that Thieves is the only team that's still in the hunt for champs qualification. And looking at the Mutineers side, it makes sense. Skies had a 1.09, Neptune had a 1.2, Havoc had a 1.18, and Wake had a 1.11. So great showing for the Mutineers. And honestly, I like their chances going into tomorrow. They face the LA Gorillas, so they're going to be farming some Gorilla points tomorrow. And yeah, so that should be a pretty decisive 3-0 for them in the stage. I believe it's 3-0, right? They've played 2 matches thus far. They played Seattle already, I think. Yeah, they played Seattle already. So that was their second match, and then Gorillas will be their third match, and looks like they'll go, of course, 9-2 map count overall, because they'll probably 3-0 Gorillas. Now looking ahead to our next matchup of the day, we of course have my home team, Atlanta FaZe, taking on the LA Thieves. You guys know I was expecting this to be a 3-0. And it was really close to being a 3-0. Honestly, if FaZe didn't troll the Moscow S&D and give Slash with Thanos the crazy, crazy, crazy 1v3 against Abizi, Simp, and Cell, then honestly it would have been a 3-0 for the FaZe side. They were up 5-2 and they just threw it away. So looking at the stats, we of course started off on checkmate hardpoint. Selim had a .61, one of his worst performances that I've seen as a pro, even dating back to his days in Black Ops 4 on FaZe. Never really seen him have such a stinker. I don't expect this to persist. I think this is just an anomaly here. It's a one-off, and I think he'll regain going into their next series against Optic. That's their big series that they have circled most likely. Simp had a 1.32, and Abizi's and Arcides, Abizi and Arcides both had a 0.9 with the exact same number of kills and deaths. Interesting. John, of course, had a .59 on the Thieves side. He was really the only player on that team to not do well. Draza went 39-27, insane. He almost broke Clay's kill record of, I believe, 42 on checkmate. Kenny had a 1.3. He did really well, and so did Slash with a 1.04. So very good performance from the Thieves. I'm stumbling all over my words. Looking at the map too, of course, that being Moscow, S&D, Pain. BZ had a 1.71. He had a 1v3, I think, at one point. Cell had a 1.2, Simp had a 1.33, and RC's had a 0.75. John had a 0.3, Draza had a 0.75, Kenny had a 1.67, and Slash had a 0.88. So pretty solid performance from the FaZe side, but they just couldn't close it out towards the end. And of course, the Thieves were able to capitalize on that. Looking at the Gary control, it was a very, very decisive 3-0. No point in reviewing the stats there. And then the raid hard point, of course, is where FaZe closed it out. John had a 0.54, Draza had a 0.8, Kenny had a 1.14, and Slash had a 0.9. And on the FaZe side, RC's had a 1 even, Abizi had a 1.26, Cell had a 1.53, and Simp had a 1.05. So looking at the maps, of course, Selim had a very, very, very rough map 1, but he regained right after. So you could really chalk that up to an anomaly. He still finished the series with a 1.11. So honestly, the map 1 never happened as far as the stats are concerned. Of course, Abizi put up a 1.07. Alec RC's went even with a 1 KD, and Simp was the KD leader in the lobby with a 1.32. He was also the KD leader on the day, highest KD. So shout out to Simp. 15,000 damage, by the way. Looking at the Thieves side, John had a 0.6, the lowest KD I've ever seen him drop in a series. Personally, maybe he has one that's lower than that, but I just think it was an off day for him. Draws at a 0.97. He was playing very well today. Ken had a 1.15. Ken was frying. He was the only player on Thieves that was frying the entire series long. He had 15,000 damage along with Simp, so he was just playing his own game. And of course, Slasher had a 0.87. So the Thieves played very, very well. I was really surprised that they played FaZe so tight. I knew they played them tight, but I thought the hard points would be somewhere in the 250 to 150 ballpark, just given the lack of practice that the Thieves have at this point. But that was a very encouraging sign for them going into their next few matches against teams like Optic and, of course, Legion, other grunts, right? On the FaZe side, this was a great test for them. They passed with flying colors. They won 3-1, as they should have, and they handled business. Now, looking ahead to tomorrow's matches, we, of course, kick things off with the New York Subliners taking on the London Royal Ravens. And this pick might shock some of you guys, but I think it's a 3-1 in favor of the Subliners. And honestly, I think it's just due to the fact that their form has been on such shaky ground lately. They just got 3-0 by Optic. But I do think that this team, they will be back in the lab, and they'll say, hey, we're really not doing well. We lost a very close round 11 to Thieves. We lost a very easy to clutch 2v2 situation. And we got to get back on track before we end up in losers for this, of course, Group A side, excuse me. So I think Subliners come out hot tomorrow trying to make a statement against the London Royal Ravens. I think they get the 3-1. I think it's a pretty straightforward series. I think map 1 goes the Subliners' way. Map 2 likely goes their way as well. And then Ravens probably put a pin in everything around map 3. Ravens have been a pretty good control team as of late, and Subliners have not been consistent in that mode. And I think Subliners close out map 4. Looking ahead to our second series of the day, we have the Mutineers taking on the Gorillas, and I think it's a 3-0 for the Mutineers. I think the Gorillas, they're just chalked at this point. No disrespect to that team or the players, but I just don't think that they have the roster to really make any moves at this point in the season and any noise, essentially. So I think that's a 3-0 for the Mutineers. And looking ahead to our last matchup of the day, we have the Ultra, hence the background, taking on the Surge in our big matchup of the day, our marquee matchup, if you will. And I think the Ultra walk away with a 3-0, but I do think Seattle plays them very tight in the respawns. And I think the Surge is honestly going to be a wash just because the Ultra are so ahead of the game. And they only compete with FaZe in my mind for best S&D team in the game. So yeah, guys, that'll just about wrap it up for me. Be sure to like and comment on this video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, share it with a friend if you haven't already. Follow me on Twitter if you would like some live calls or just to see my takes on the maps as the action happens. Link is in the description down below at Fake Sports for Fans. And yeah, guys, hope you have a great morning, noon, or night wherever you may be on this beautiful planet. Hope you enjoy all the COD action, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Once again, this is Chris from Fake Sports News, and I'm signing off. Peace out, everybody.